Come on.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
Welcome to GateCrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find the universe that you'll fall in love with. We are proud to introduce our new series, Sex and Whiskey, where our hosts Nikki and RJ will sip on a dram of the good stuff while discussing the more exciting stuff. We will take you on a journey, exploring whiskeys from around the world, while also educating you on the birds and the bees, especially correcting what school or your parents missed on. Our goal is to promote a safe and fun environment that will leave you empowered and educated on your next bedroom adventure. So sit back, pour a drink, and get ready for Sex and Whiskey.
So, hi, I'm Nikki, pronouns she, they. I am a registered dietitian, actually, is where this all started, got me into the health field. And I eventually transitioned into a health and wellness coach with a board certification. And now I am more focused on human sexuality and how it impacts my clients and really embracing a sex positive attitude. And I think that's like the real reason I am like so excited to do this podcast with you, because I have so many clients out there who they just don't know the things they want to know. They feel like they can't talk about it. And it ranges from things like, I don't know how to communicate with my partner about things I want done, or I don't even know how to figure out my own pleasure. So just talking about this stuff and putting it out there is so important to me.
Hi, I'm RJ. My pronouns are he, him. My background is I've been a registered nurse for almost 12 years now. I worked primarily with the pediatric population. But during my time, I spent with ages ranging 14 and older, definitely during that exploration period in your life. And a lot of them had questions that they were not getting the right answers to. And unfortunately, at that age, you're kind of unsure who to go to for advice. And the internet and pornography has its limits, unfortunately. So I did my best in a respectful manner to try and navigate them in the right direction. And especially when I worked with college age students, promoting sexual health and wellness as well, educating them, especially on safe sex. And the lack of knowledge in the community is astounding and something I want to correct. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy to be with my co-host, Nikki. So let's get started.
Sounds good. Let's talk about sex and whiskey.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's why everyone here, if everyone listens, it's simply because of the title. It's nothing else. There's nothing else. That's it.
They might get like 10 minutes in and be like, all right, that's cool. It's good.
Well, it's like those other videos. You get like a couple minutes in, you jump around a little bit, and then you're done. So
I've never done that before. Never.
You've never gone through over 200 pages until you find that very specific one that only registers with you? No? Oh, that's me. All right.
No, never.
I think Nikki's going to get us started with our first flight of whiskey. The way this is going to go is Nikki and I are going to discuss the whiskeys that we have brought with us. There will be 3 flights. And then in between, we're going to talk about the nitty gritty, the hot and heavy, the sex stuff. So she is going to get us started with whatever wonderful whiskey she brought.
Yes. So I first started drinking bourbon. The first bourbon I ever was like, ooh, yes, please. I'll take that neat, is Maker's Mark, like regular old Maker's. It's got that red wax top. And later on in my bourbon tasting adventure, I discovered the cask strength 54.7% alcohol by volume. And so it's a bourbon. It's just a lot stronger. It has more of a kick because it's more potent when it's tapped directly from the cask. It just sits higher, and usually it's diluted down to like 40% is what I think it's 40 for most whiskeys that you'll get. So I usually drink anything that's cask strength with a little bit of water, because just kind of burns the mouth a little bit from how high the alcohol level is. But I think for me, Makers just it's got such a classic taste. Um, like I have my tasting notes from before, but there's a lot of caramel, toasted nuts, molasses, salted peanuts, oak, a little bit of black pepper. There's a nice vanilla and caramel smell to it. So it's one of my favorites. And Makers itself, I believe this Makers is $40 a bottle, but it's a smaller bottle. And it's been given a bourbon. Some, people who do this for a living, not us, not me, unless you do it for a living and I don't know about it. But some professionals who do this and they're like, look, I know things, rated it at 93 out of 100. So it's like, that's a high number. It must be good, right?
That's an A minus. That's a very good grade.
Yeah.
I'm
And
very happy with that.
yeah, that plus minus system. And so,
It still happens. That looked good.
yeah, and I always drink my whiskey out of a this fancy Glencairn glass. Is that what they're called? I think. I
I
don't
can't
know.
remember, I can't remember if the glass is called a snifter or what the hell it's actually. We should know this, but it's a glass. It's a fancy glass.
It's a fancy glass.
Nikki's drinking it out of a very fancy glass.
Mhm.
Funny enough, Kindred Spirits, Kindred Minds. I also brought a Maker's Mark to start with. Mine is a 101 proof, which I believe is like a 55, 56% ABV. It is strong, but luckily it's sweet, fruity, also has those caramel notes that Maker is known for, but damn if it is not smooth. Mine as well also costs anywhere from 40 to 45, unless you know somebody, and then it's free. I enjoy it on the rocks. I actually have been trying more and more to water down my bourbons, whiskeys, scotches, which I know is sacrilege to some, but I don't fucking care, because we're going to promote the accessibility of bourbon, and you can drink it however you want. Also, new studies, we're going to tap into healthier, a rise in throat cancer. And they are thinking that it is because whiskey drinkers, especially, are drinking without any water, and the water actually absorbs some of the globules of whiskey and transports it right down the throat without irritating it to the point of becoming a carcinogen. So, fun fact. But we're gonna enjoy this right now. It smells like bourbon, which is good.
It's a good start.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
I could not find my snifter, if that's whatever the hell it's called. I have a half glass or a quarter glass. It's shockingly smooth for the amount of alcohol that's actually in here. Definitely something you just sip on. Very perfect for like a cold day. This is like sweater weather whiskey, which is perfect because it literally just snowed in March. Go figure.
Yeah, it's cute, right? The
Yeah.
weather's cute like that. I did wear a sweater just for this sweater weather whiskey situation.
Sweater twins. Yeah, so I think the big topic there is bourbon's delicious. But I think a more pressing topic is communication. Nikki, will you get me started on communication?
Right. So, communication, we're communicating right now, and we're going to communicate about sex while drinking. And this really,
as it should be done. As it should be done.
yeah, and maybe sometimes it shouldn't be done that way, but we're just go with us for now, okay? I think communication with sex, and it's something we've already sort of hit on a few times, that there's communication between people, between partners, but then there's how sex is communicated by health professionals and in society and where people get their information from. So we really could take the topic of communicating about sex, you could start anywhere. But I'd like to sort of think about it from the perspective of, hi, we just met, and legit, RJ and I just met
Literally.
like 20 minutes ago.
Literally.
And so this is great. But when you first meet somebody and you're like, what is the point of you? Not like that. What am I about to do with you?
What
No.
is your purpose?
Like, what is your purpose in life? And are we gonna have sex? You know, that that type of communication doesn't always happen. It's not always straightforward. So I think I'll touch a little bit more on hookup culture in terms
Mhm.
of where people start. Um, and so hookup culture is really meant to be a sexual encounter between strangers and acquaintances. There's a lot of moral panic around this one. And I will say that when I quote any sort of numbers, a lot of the stuff I'm looking up is from scientific studies, scientific research. Some of it hasn't been published yet, but science doesn't, it takes a while for it to catch up with the reality of what's going on. So some studies might be done in like 2014, and what it looks like now is totally different. So but a national study found that 12 to 21 year olds, about 70 to 85% of those folks engaged in some sort of casual sex experience. And
I'm
the
sorry, did you
hookups,
say 12? Did we start
yeah,
at 12?
12 to 21, yes. So and that really kind of brings home this thing about we should be talking about sex in a way so young people aren't learning about sex from pornography. I'm not dissing pornography. I appreciate a good, pornographic film, but just keeping it real.
We all
And
enjoy a good skin flick every once in a while.
yeah, yeah, I like one with a good plot. Um,
We're all here for the plot. Let's
we
be honest.
really,
We're
yeah.
all here for the plot.
Oh, I have a funny story related to that. Maybe we'll get to it later. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, should I tell it now? No.
Fucking go for it. We're here. We're here.
Okay.
We're here.
So talking, and I think this actually has a lot to do still with communicating about sex, but years ago a trilogy of books came out that, well, there's some BDSM stuff in it, and it's 50 Shades of Grey.
I thought you were going to
um
say Lord of the Rings. So good. Yes. Okay. 50
uh,
Shades of Grey.
yeah. And a coworker of mine who was in her 60s at the time, she picked up the book and she wanted to talk about it, and she was really nervous. She's like, I'm not reading it about for the sex stuff. No, I just skip over that. uh I just want to talk to you about the plot. And I'm like, there's a plot in that? Like,
I was just going to say.
and I'm just like ripping into this author. I know there are people who love it. I also
Yeah.
found the book problematic. And you want to talk about how certain sexual activities are communicated in popular culture. That is a really good example of maybe a way that BDSM and an entire lifestyle was misrepresented. But
Mhm.
that's a whole other thing. It is related to communication.
That's a later episode. We
That,
will get into that. That's a later episode. We're still dipping our toes. We're dipping
yeah,
our
we're still.
toes into sex.
Mhm. That's a thing.
We're
Um, somebody's into that. But yeah,
we just made 2 t-shirts. That's a thing and somebody's into that.
yep, great, good job. We're killing it. So, like I said, 70 to 85% of folks engaged in a casual sex experience. So, over the years, what society has seen is just, okay, you meet somebody, you date, and then you have sex, and that's sort of this sexual script that has been put in place. And that's not really what's happening at all. But the other thing about this study is they had a casual sexual experience. And even that, it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, RJ, what does that mean for you? Like a casual, not, you don't have to tell me personally, but when you hear casual sex experience, what type of activities define sex for you?
Casual sexual activity. I mean when I was a young lad, I think, the bases were discussed. I think my problematic issue is the fact that I um was ignorant to a lot of it because I kind of was a late bloomer in the sense that, I didn't have my own real sexual identity until I felt like I was exploring myself, like when I was like 15. And then, I lost my virginity at 17. And I felt like everybody else in my class or grade was so far ahead of me, which I don't know. I didn't personally know because again, it's not something that was, people would brag about things, but who the fuck knows if they're actually telling the truth about anything. So for me, the notion of casual sex probably didn't become a thing until my early 20s. I mean, I had the wonderful position of finding a woman when I was 21 who ended up being my wife for the past dating for 13 years, married for 9 in August. So I had this small window of casual, but my casual was different again because my parents were always in the mindset that, establish a relationship and get married. And part of me was like, yes, like, that's what you're supposed to do. The other part of me was like, but I don't want to do that. So no, there was one part of me that was very much not about that. So I think my understanding of casual sex is kind of a communication between two people where it is understood that what we're about to embark on, what we're about to do, is going to be, a pleasurable opportunity for both of us, hopefully, if we both know what we're doing, or we're going to try some stuff. But past that, there's no guarantees of a future relationship or anything like that. Like, that was my understanding of casual sex. And we're going to find out right now, the way that we're talking, I don't know what your definition of casual sex is, and you didn't know mine until we talked about it. And I think this is at the base of communication. How many people are actually sitting down and be like, what are you expecting out of this?
Yeah.
I think we're, in that situation, you're so revved up and ready to just, get into things that there is no communication. So for you, what do you think is casual sex?
So I will say that when I was younger, I thought sex was penetration. Like, that was the definition of it. So we go there. So casual would be having penetrate. Oh man, I've been drinking too much. For vaginal and penile intercourse for me.
PV. I gotcha.
PV. So that would be the definition of sex. If it was to be casual, I'm not looking for anything outside of that. However, now more and more what I consider sex is, it's just very broad. Like, and what people are thinking counts as sex, that's changing as well. So people
Mm-hmm.
were defining what hookups were, and that meant kissing, uh, genital touching and fondling, like those aggressive teenage. I mean,
Dry humping through the jeans.
dry hump, like, yeah, like the jeans. You're like, how are you? The zipper must be so uncomfortable for you. Like, sir, are you okay?
You got to place it to one side of the jean, and then you got to know what side the person that you're interested is going to be on. Because
Yeah.
if you're not interested, or you are, I mean, I think teenage erections is going to be a whole other thing later on, but we'll start with this. But to your point, exactly, penetrative PV. It's funny too, because I still don't know what a hookup is. I still don't know. And I think, the nomenclature surrounding it, a hookup, what is that? I always thought it was just, oh, we hooked up. I mean, my definition was like, oh, I guess they made out or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We don't, like, everyone has, that can mean anything. It really can. And unless people are, being specific about it, like, oh, we made out, versus, oh, we went all the way and, had anal sex as well. Like, it could mean anything. So what's interesting is there's a moral panic out there about, oh, hookup culture, when a hookup could really mean you made out with that person at a party, and oh God, you hope you never see him again. Like, that's not talking from personal experience at all, not at all. But it can include a lot of different behaviors. However, another study found that some of these hookups, especially the ones that went all the way to any sort of penetration, 80% of people indicated that alcohol was involved in that last hookup, and
Mm.
64% attributed the progression, like it getting all the way, to the extent of alcohol use. So you think about that and how that impacts communication. Like, think about you're drinking and you like someone and you're making out and your dick is hitting your zipper and it's like hitting in a weird position and you're like, ouch, this hurts, I need to be free. I mean, I don't know if that's how it works, but if
Oh, you nailed it. Keep going.
okay, great. Yeah, I like to write in my free time, so I just imagine scenarios. Um, just write some erotica. I'm just like, I know
It's
exactly what that.
probably better than 50 Shades of Grey, so keep going.
Yeah, no, I can't say. I won't let anybody read it. I think it gives away too much about myself.
Isn't it scary that like when we write, we are at our most vulnerable, and it's one of the reasons why they say that the writing is the peering into the soul of somebody. It's not it's
Mhm.
the eyes, it's the pen to paper. Um,
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's completely off topic. But to your point, exactly. You hit the nail on the head, especially with the alcohol proponent of it, and it's scary too. And we're going to get into consent in a little bit because how has alcohol affected communication, and did that hookup occur simply because alcohol was involved, which percentage wise of saying probably.
Mhm. And another thing is, how satisfied are people with that hookup? There is the idea of regret, there's shame. Society does, that's what it does. It's going to make a joke about religion, but I'll save it for later. But people after a hookup, when really it was just like, oh, that was just about sex or a makeout, they will feel guilt sometimes. Or one of the reasons they say they're unsatisfied with the hookup is because they just were not satisfied with the hookup. There's a study out there, and I do not believe it's been published yet. It's being reviewed, but looked at people in relationships versus people having a hookup. So they asked, all right, did you have an orgasm when hooking up? How often do you have orgasms when you're in a committed relationship? And for women, people with, and this was, I have to say, this study was mainly um, heterosexuals, men and women. Uh, that's a whole other comment that can be made about any sort of studies on human sexuality. Leaves out a large amount of the population. But the idea that you're meeting someone for the first time and you don't have an orgasm because you're not communicating, maybe, like, that's a very real thing. And when you're in a relationship and you've had time to really kind of learn each other's bodies, you're more likely to have an orgasm. The same was actually true for men, but men reach that finish line more often. Like, it's 70 to 80% of the time they're
It's
going to
the
finish.
cruelest joke out there.
I know. It's like 80% of the time. I think it was 80%. I wish I had the graph in front of me, but uh on a in the relationships they're finishing, which is, you wonder what happens to the other 20%. There are some people who do not, some men who do not ejaculate, from sex, so, and that's fine. But even in the hookups, they were not able to finish, and you sort of wonder, like, wait, why? And that's like a question I would love to ask people. So what happened? Like, were you too drunk? Because I know that can
um
happen.
I mm, so let's get into this. I think the proponent there is from the first point, not even talking about alcohol or anything, medication. I think too, there are certain antidepressants, there's certain ADHD medications that make it really difficult for men to ejaculate. Unfortunately, like you're talking, just pushing and pushing and pushing, and it does not matter. And is there still sensation there? Is there is it still sexually gratifying? Is it still enjoyable to that point? But the script is also on the other side. Like if a woman isn't able to finish, it's I think too, like based on society, like the long time joke has always been like, men finish first, and that is, and I think today we're going to flip that script. We're going to try and talk about how can we both reach the finish line together, and communication is the key here. But yeah, no, alcohol obviously can cause issues, but it's not just alcohol, and there's performance anxiety too. I mean, you can be stiff as a board and just you are literally too pent up to actually ejaculate. That actually occurs too. So there is a multitude of issues, but I think it's still astounding that it's you can say 20%, and I'm already blanking on the number that you gave me of women who weren't able to finish.
I think it was 50% and then 30%. So even with relationships,
Yeah,
it's about 50%.
even in relationships, what are you still doing there?
Well, I mean, that's so that can also go into this communication conversation.
Yeah, you know what? That's bad on my part. That there should be no shame in that community, because if you truly love someone, and if sexual whatever is not your forte, or something that you don't think is that valued in the relationship, then as long as you, I guess, enjoy it, it does. If finishing is not the end goal for you, just the enjoyment of it is, then there it is. So there's no shame there. There's absolutely no shame. I retract that one. But I do find it. I hope that in those relationships that at least communication is part of it. At least you are discussing, did you finish? Why? Like, what can I do to help you finish? I guess is the goal here.
And I think that's exactly where I was going. It's like, how do partners communicate that? Because there is that disparity, but also there is a conversation about orgasm versus pleasure. Like, why are you doing this? You can totally enjoy a sexual encounter and have it be very pleasurable without orgasm. So maybe that sort of script needs to be adjusted, that like it's about the journey, not the destination. And I think we tend to kind of dive into it like we're like, let's go, we got to get this done. Like we have somewhere to be. We've got 5 minutes. I don't know why we have 5 minutes, but we have 5 minutes. I don't That's the type of stuff that it's like needs to be revisited, like having a longer session that isn't about the orgasm but all of the pleasurable things that can happen. But when it comes to couples and a woman not feeling satisfied because she cannot orgasm, I think a lot of that does come down to a misunderstanding of how to get to an orgasm and what women need to do in that sort of situation, like when you take over your own sexual agency. Like I think there's a Megan the Stallion like lyric. Can I say it? I can say it, but I think she says,
Yeah.
don't fuck me like that, fuck me like this. And it's really hard to be like in that situation, like, and you think like your whoever it is who's fucking you, it's like they're really proud of what they're doing and you can tell, but it's just not happening for you. How do you stop that, and how do you do that without wounding somebody's ego? And
Hmm.
that's where communication ahead of time, before you're in that sort of sexual, like before you're in it, really really helps. And discussing preferences and what you like and don't like, that's part of it. And then also being, because of the way our culture kind of approaches sex, talking about sex, even in relationships, is taboo. I don't know how many people out there will just straight up tell their partner, like, no, I don't like it when you go down on me like this. This is
Hmm.
specifically what I want you to do. I'd be more inclined to do that because that's who I am as a person, assertive.
Yeah.
Like I know, I know how to get there. Like,
Yeah.
let me show you how.
Yeah.
That's not not everybody is like
Listen,
that.
I'm just the engineer. Why am I not listening to the conductor of the train? Like that
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't make sense to me. But and the again, if we're going trope here, if a person says that they're close, that doesn't mean change the fucking tempo. That doesn't mean do something different. That
Yep.
means keep steady and calm. Just you got the rhythm, you got the beat.
Mhm.
You're right there. Okay.
Yep.
But how much of that is learned
Mhm.
through repetition, how much of that is learned through communication, and how much of that is just kind of figuring things out on your own. and
Yep.
and I find it I find it difficult too, because how many people, even in relationships where there is love and trust, okay, love and trust right here, they can hold hands together, but sex is still all the way out here. Why can we still not talk about, I want to be fucked like this, and I want you to do this, I want you to do that. And in the middle of it, when we're actually doing it, why are you silent? Why are you quiet? Why are you not saying, tell me what you want? But that again, that's if you're that type of person. There are some
Yep.
people who aren't able to open their mouth at all, where there is just silence. Um, and I think there's a whole other list of issues of why that is. Um, but I think it's important now, what we're discussing here is that this is one of the three cornerstones. Okay. This is one of the three cornerstones of things we're going to talk about today. Communication. And I think it all three are kind of tied in importance.
Mhm.
Um, as we'll see as we get into the next one. But I definitely think that without communication, there can't be good sex. You're not having good sex if you're not communicating.
Exactly. And
That's the
I will
title of my next album, by the way. Not having good sex without communication.
that could also be the title of your sex tape. I don't know. Um,
My sex DVD. Okay, my sex DVD.
sorry, not Blu-ray, not
My sex
4K.
stream. My sex Twitch.
Yes, I was gonna. You beat me to it. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, um, yeah.
that's
GateCrashers
what
is
she
getting to
said.
some interesting stuff. Mm. I had a place I was gonna go, and I'm like so gone. Oh shit. Oh,
Yes.
one of the things to think
This
about is
whiskey was good, by the way. This
this is
is
great whiskey. I'm going for like the higher proof things, and I'm also not. I have to say we should all drink responsibly, and there are
correct.
certain amounts you should, like the Surgeon General, like people have recommendations.
I love how you jumped right to the Surgeon General.
Like
He's
they,
sitting at home being like, I'll tell him how much they could fucking drink.
like they're like all these rules and everything. That's Please don't ask me for that right now. That's not how
Um,
I came into this podcast today.
I will say that Nikki and I are in our own respective homes. There is no driving home.
Yeah,
We're gonna
we're safe.
Uber to our beds later. So
Yeah.
we will both be okay. So
My
yes,
partner's
definitely
just
drink
gonna bring
responsibly.
me a pillow. He's just gonna put a pillow in here on the floor for me, cover me in a blanket, and then go away. Like I'm safe. It's good.
Yeah.
So communication and sex with couples who aren't willing or aren't comfortable enough talking about, like, hey, these are my preferences. One of the
Mhm.
things that can come into play there is, say you've been faking like it's
Mhm.
awesome all the time for so long, and then one day you're like, honey, I want you to try this, or honey, I like it like this. And it turns into, wait, you haven't told me this the entire time. You've been quiet about this. Why didn't you say something sooner? And that can just turn into this other headbutting thing. And, when it comes to that, what I've told people is just check the ego. Check the ego, like just put it aside, because it really is something that is cultural, where this is where we are, and all we can do is have that conversation, communicate, and heal, and that will lead to a better sexual experience. So you kind of have to just put that blame away, since we're all a little bit ashamed of something deep down. And I'm not going to comment on my shame, but but I'm sure there's always something. But
So I think a great way to transition,
mm,
because we can talk about communication all night long. I think the perfect way to communicate. I should have waited till you actually were finished the drink before I started talking. I think the best way um, to kind of summarize it is if you're not talking or however form of communication you have with your partner, casual, long term, it doesn't matter. If you're not communicating, then you're not going to have the experience that you want. That's the takeaway here, hopefully.
Mhm.
um so I'd love to get another glass of whiskey because I feel like that's a dangerous yet perfect idea before we jump into our next topic.
Yes.
So I'm gonna take the lead here. I'm gonna put out my hand and you're gonna follow me because we're going into our second flight. So
Okay.
for the second flight here, I have a Chestnut Farms bourbon. It's a small batch bourbon. It is also very strong. I don't know why I picked all the strong ones. It's very spicy as well. This is also a great holiday cold weather type of bourbon. It's very warming. It's kind of like a nice, like I don't, it's like a crock pot of like stew. And, like I don't know how else to put that. Um, I I
Why
I
is that
drink
so
my
funny?
I don't know. I drink my stew neat. It's $60 to $70. This is a higher end bourbon, but I will tell you that when I started drinking, a lot of this stuff was a lot cheaper. And I think that the kind of proclivity of bourbon and whiskey and scotch has definitely just completely amassed. And at one point, we were facing actually a shortage because there just weren't the barrels there because people really picked it up. I blame Mad Men. I really do. I absolutely 100% blame Mad Men. But hey, if you get into drinking, this is the time to do it. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. So, cheers. We're gonna. Oh yeah. Oh my god, that's so good. That's so good.
You look
All
like you
right,
enjoyed that.
I did. Um, I'm glad my facial expression
You like your
gave
crock
you
stew? What did you call
my
it?
it's like a crock pot of stew.
Okay, yeah, you liked your stew. Okay,
It was
it's
good.
great.
Good stew. All right.
Good stew.
What are you drinking over there?
So I think I'm gonna switch to a rye,
Hmm.
and it is, look at my notes, barrel seagrass rye, and it's actually a blend of American and Canadian rye whiskeys.
Hmm.
And I this is one, the first time I tried it, I fucking hated it. Like I don't I don't even know why we had it. I think my husband was just like, yeah, we were in Kentucky and we were
Hmm.
just trying all sorts of things. We were
Yeah,
we're getting experimental,
as you do in Kentucky.
as you do in Kentucky. Yeah. And so I don't know why this was purchased, um, because the rating is 88 and my husband is kind of like, I don't want to call him a snob.
I was gonna say snob. It's
I love
okay. It
you.
is absolutely okay. It is okay.
Um,
Because snob just means someone who really loves something so much that they like want to protect it.
yeah.
That's all it is.
Well, I think he just really got into the whiskey thing because he was like, "Oh, she likes whiskey. I want her to still like me." So I don't know. That's the only reason he's into it is because I love it. I know, right? He's listening. We're communicating. That's
That's why I watch Bridgerton. That's why I watch a lot of period dramas. I mean they're actually really good. I will contend with that too. But yeah, no, I got you on that one.
yeah. So,
I don't know
but
why I fucking made that noise.
it's a good. You know what? Because the whiskey. I don't know. The bourbon did it. But the
Mhm.
rating on this was an 88, still high, but
Hi B.
yeah, it's high beat. Like I would have been really mad at myself for that. Um, maybe. And the price of it though is $89, so it's a higher, it's a little pricier, but it has a lot of fruit in it, and that's because it's aged in barrels. So a bourbon, to call it bourbon, it has to be aged in a new virgin charred oak barrel. And
You know
that's
how I like my barrels? Barrels that haven't been fucked by anybody else.
and I'm broken. Just broke Nikki. Because like there's like a hole in the side of the barrel.
Do you think afterwards they're like, we can't call it bourbon anymore? What
That's
did
what
you
it was.
do?
I don't have my pearls on. I can't clutch them. Oh my. Woo. I'm supposed to be
Okay.
drinking. Okay.
All
Woo.
right.
So this is aged in Martinique
Unfucked barrels.
pearls. Fuck. Oh my god.
I'll stop.
Cry.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, you're not sorry. You're so
I'm
not
not at
sorry.
Not at all. All right. I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to like cut out like 45 minutes of us laughing.
Oh, I'm leaving all this in.
It's like okay. Woo. All right. Nikki, get it together. So this is aged in Martinique. I don't know if I'm saying that word right. Madeira. I have no idea if that's how that word is pronounced.
Mhm.
And like an apricot flavored wood situation. And so they're used
Sure.
barrels. And it gives it kind of this like spicy, grassy flavor. And there's so much apricot flavor in it, but also chili pepper, honey, salt. So it's a really nice rye. But the first time I had it, I was like, this is garbage. And then I looked at the price and I'm like, well, we have to drink this garbage. We drink our mistakes, we eat our
Mhm.
mistakes. We don't want to waste food.
Nope.
We don't want to waste liquor, but I will say that if there's a bottle of something we don't like, we just give it to our D&D party and like leave it at someone's house and
Absolutely.
they're always very happy. But over time I really grew to like this one. So
Sláinte.
it kind of tastes like kind of has this like fresh cut grass. I don't know, it's just an interesting taste that I really enjoy. And this is also 59% ABV.
Man, we picked some high ass shit. We
Yeah,
really did.
all of them are cask strength. Like I was like,
Oh my god.
yeah, so we're together on that. Yeah. And this is made in Kentucky. All three are Kentucky whiskeys. So cheers. Oh god, I have to talk about other shit after this.
Well, we're this is the perfect segue. Because our next C in the 3 C's is consent. And I think the best way to start is kind of how we started this podcast. We both established consent in terms of what we were both comfortable talking about. And I think as part of any encounter, consent, even more so the communication, has to be at the forefront. Has to be. So I'm gonna let Nikki start on consent. I'm consenting.
So consent is I'm gonna go ahead and say put the trigger warning just right here. Talking about consent can lead to talking about sexual assault. Not going to get very much into that. This is more about the communication and what consent really means. And for the purpose of this conversation, I'm leaving out a discussion about asexuality and consent. And that's something that is a whole topic about asexuality. And I want to make sure I have a lot of time for that to really respect it. So, not today. Um, but when we think of consent, there's this sort of script about it. And we think of, or at least I did when I was younger, the way culture sort of frames it as not always spoken, that like will they, won't they, and then there's a kiss, like that tension, that sort of tough guy who swoops woman off her feet and all of that, and it's like, oh, that's what we want. And even in erotica, which a lot of people read, you don't see a lot of that sort of like, yes, I want to have sex with you sort of consent. It's not explicitly said.
Hmm.
So looking at consent now and what it is, there's a lot of research about what it looks like and how people interpret it. And that stuff is still coming out, what consent is and what it isn't. But really, it comes down to this idea of affirmative consent. And that is active communication. That word keeps coming up, communication, uh, to agree in sexual activity without coercion. And that means there's like a yes. That's what it means. There's no, just because there's a lack of protest, a lack of resistance, lack of refusal, or silence, that does not mean they are consenting. And you really kind of have to pause and think about that for a moment when you're like, okay, think of an encounter where you, and not, not necessarily you, but just myself, anybody out there who if you're still here,
Hmm.
congratulations. Thank you for being here. But
Oh, they will be. Trust me.
I hope so. Um, but you think about that moment, it's like, has there ever been a moment where you're want to have sex with somebody and you just point blank ask the question, like, do you want to have sex? And the answer is yes. Like, how many times do you wait for the word yes? Usually things just they start escalating and it gets hot and heavy. And rather than waiting for the word no, we don't look for the word yes. So most of what we do is we expect, like, oh, if they don't want it, then they'll say no. And that's not
Hmm.
really what it needs to be. When you think about that and like what it would actually look like as things naturally progress between two, three, four, five people. Um,
There's no shame on this. There's no shame on this
the look on your
series.
face was fun. It was good look. Um, but when you're looking at that, the focus is on, well, did they say no?
Hmm.
And it really needs to be, did they say yes? So that's kind of my first thing, is look for the word yes. And the word yes is like a green light. If there's any sort of hesitation whatsoever of like, oh, I don't know, like, um, then you need to slow down. Just stop what you're doing. Just don't play the like, oh, but baby, da 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 da. And I say that after having like a conversation with someone recently who, um, she knew I was doing this. She told me the story, and she had shown hesitation. She told me I could share this, uh, in a sexual encounter that involved a lot of alcohol as well. And she was like, I don't know if we should do this. And he gave his reason of like, oh, well, we're really good friends. And she was like, no, you have a girlfriend. And he said, I'm going to break up with her tomorrow. And he like talked her into it by just lying. And they had been drinking. And afterwards, she felt absolutely horrible. Like,
Hmm.
so what he did is he took this situation where he talked his way into it because she hesitated. And that is something that people people do. And the way she defines herself in that and how she participated in that encounter, she asked me to keep that back, but she told me I should share that because it is
Hmm.
very, very important,
Hmm.
that she felt like she was talked into it when she showed some hesitation.
And that partner right there just learned for their self, well, if it works now,
Yeah.
I can keep doing this.
Yes.
Which is a scary fucking thought, an absolutely terrifying thought. And the only perspective I can give on this is from um, a partner's point of view, in terms of again, having great communication with my spouse and understanding that um you know uh, any time, any initiative is always, making sure that the yes is there, but also even if it's mid thrust, if a no is brought up, that's the end of the fucking conversation.
Hmm.
That's it. You know, everything's done.
Yeah.
Because I think people forget that there still has to be consent in relationships. And you know, it's not just casual encounters, it is relationships as well. And
Hmm.
I think it's fucking devastating that you know, we hear these people who are trapped in situations where there is a lack of consent. And you know, i I think the old standby, and I don't know if it needs to be changed or there's a better way to say it, but no means no. Like it's the reason why it's stuck so hard in my head is, you know, as a nurse, you are basically, you have a great point of view and, you know, great education and um you know, SA and a lot of other issues of violence surrounding sex does arise. And it's horrifying, and it's something that kind of changes you as a person. So it's so important right now, especially for people to understand that no is a complete fucking sentence, and that's the end of the conversation. But I mean, we obviously have more to talk to
Yeah.
talk about and consent. But I think people for the main point and need to understand that yes, consent is still needed, still required,
Mhm.
and that's why it's the cornerstone of what we're talking about.
Yeah, it can always be revoked. So if you get your yes and you're like getting it on and that no comes from any party involved, that's a stop no matter what. Period. And that shouldn't be up for debate. It shouldn't be a no, but let me do this or wait. It just no. Just, and then from there you take it because it could be that person could be saying no for a lot of reasons.
Hmm.
So the thing is, whatever the reason is, it's still a no that needs to
Exactly.
be respected. So, and I will say that kind of comes into this whole idea of consent being a process. It's an ongoing process of you have this sort of internal willingness, like, yes, I want to do
Hmm.
this. I don't have any reservations. This feels safe. I do want to have some sort of something go down with this person, whatever it looks like. And then there's the explicit agreement of like, okay, we are going to do this. And ideally, it would be we are going to do XYZ
Hmm.
typically. And I think pornography can really contribute to this, is where it's like they just keep going, like they keep switching positions randomly and
Yeah.
stuff keeps happening and nobody's talking to each other. So I guess that's what it's supposed to be.
And you're like, how did when did the what is that the bed? Like, where did they were in the shower? Like, that's two fucking different rooms.
Is
Like,
that a
how are
where,
what
where did that
is that a
leather couch
car?
come from?
And is that the boom mic? What is going like? It's just, I
The
mean,
boom mic dips down.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, I think I think more importantly, and it just kind of jumped off the page as I'm looking at our notes. I really want to kind of harp on something that how do you make consent sexy? How do you make consent such, like, how do you make not fun, I don't know, I don't know if fun's the right word, but how do you make it the integral part? Because how do you make it, you know, that situation where consent is received but in a way that it's not like, all right, let's, you know, let me get out the contract and let's talk about what, you know, our can do, won't do, you know, how do we make consent sexy in
So
2022?
there are, I will say, my biggest way of doing that is thinking about dirty talk. And not everybody is into dirty talk. You talk like think about even sexting and that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's really hard to make that sexy, or you may feel uncomfortable, and that's fine. A lot of people do, but things I'm trying. This is really it's like I've been drinking. Do I put on the 1-900 operator voice, which I was told I had back when I did college radio? I
I'm
had a
gonna
voice.
we listen, we both know, and it's gonna come right here, and you're gonna say, "Can I fuck you?" That's like and I'm sorry, but like that isn't the open dialogue. Can I? Like, is it okay?
Mhm.
Because I want to. Can I?
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I think
1-900.
that's it. No, I think that's it. No, it's, can I do this? And
Mhm.
I would actually bring communication into it by saying, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want? Start with what do you want? And then I'm not doing the voice, man. Not doing it. Um, I can't because I'm laughing too hard. Like, I'm just all, mm, uh,
There's gonna be people listening to this, and
the-
somebody's what are you listening to? What are you listening to? And it's gonna be
I'm
this other like nothing.
I really, damn, now I need to like calm down if I'm gonna do that voice. But there's always like that sort of sexy voice, and honestly practice it. Like, holy shit, if you feel uncomfortable, like asking a question or any sort of dirty
Mhm,
talk or getting in that tone of voice, like your iPhone or whatever device, I don't know, I have an iPhone, I'm assuming other phones that exist in the world have it as
mhm.
well, but they have voice memos. Like, just play around and like record yourself saying something. Like, I'm really like skittish to say anything now because I feel like I'm going to start laughing at myself and being ridiculous. But it really is like, what is it, like, what is it that you want? Like, what do you want me to do? What do
I'm
you
gonna
want me to
need
do to
you
you?
to take a deep breath, and we're gonna pause here for a second,
No.
and we're gonna get the 1-900.
No, I can't do
We're
it.
dialing her up.
I can't do it. No.
In that brief moment, as before Nikki gets ready, on consent in a form of I have my friend who's been my friend for years. Um, him and his husband, we had this great conversation about the difference between heteronormative relationships versus homosexual relationships. And for him and his husband, he was discussing how when he started dating and meeting other guys, how they have to know how to communicate well, and they have to know how to do consent well, because a lot of their components is figuring out who's doing what, and who, like,
Mhm.
kind of the I'm going here, you're going there, we're doing this.
Mhm.
So that brings up a conversation, whereas for in a more heteronormative situation, and if I'm destroying the nomenclature, I completely apologize. um it's kind of like, it's we have a direct way, and it's kind of assumed what that way is. So we're getting back to that implied consent
Mhm.
sort of bullshit narrative. So I find it very interesting that we have not evolved to the point where we can just ask the right fucking question. It's terrifying that
Yeah.
we are still dealing with this now. And I'm hoping that next generation is so, because there's so much good literature out there, and there's so many good informative, this podcast, there's so many there's so many informative ways to realize what consent is all about and why you need consent. and
Mhm.
um and I think too, we and I'm trying to not discuss too much, but it's been more prevalent in uh major television franchises, Game of Thrones, Downton Abbey, and it's been kind of like part of this, of our culture now. And people are like, oh, people are too young to know about the people oh, that's really disturbing, that's really. But unfortunately, sometimes, like, the way that you learn is by seeing these things and being like, well, how can I be different from that situation?
Mhm.
What can I do? So I don't know, that's my fucking soapbox. Who knows?
Well, it's a good, I mean, getting on a soapbox about consent, that's great. Like, more like, if you're gonna choose a box of soap to stand on, like, if you're
Yeah,
gonna choose
yeah.
that box of soap,
If I choose a hill to die on,
yeah, like,
this is
yeah,
the
please do that because that's appreciated. And um, talking about consent is hard, and a lot
Mhm.
of people just don't want to hear about it. Because it's uncomfortable. However, I think a lot can be said for taking consent and there are people out there who will say consent can never be sexy because it's
Hmm.
necessary. And if that is how people feel, like it, you don't want to
Did they not
classify
hear
it.
my voice? Did they not hear how?
We're gonna change it. We're gonna change their minds. Okay, it's gonna be great. We're gonna get this out
I
there.
don't want to be the face of consent, but I want to be the voice of consent.
Okay. I don't even know where to take that. Anyway,
Yes,
um,
as you were saying.
I think when it comes to making consent something that feels natural and part of the whole process, you can
Hmm.
start communicating at the beginning by asking what your partner wants, what they're into, what they'd like to see. Um, I remember like my first kiss with my husband, and the question I asked, I was just like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? You got to tell me. You got to tell me what you want. And that's how he got a kiss. Like, and then now we're like married. It's been 10 years. Good for us. Um,
That's the way to do it. That is a
like,
hundred. That's the way to do it.
yeah. And I just kind of in the moment, it's like, I think I'm reading his body language in a
Hmm.
way that gives away like this is what he wants, but I made it
Hmm.
playful and
Hmm.
flirtatious because it's like, what do you want? I want you to be explicit. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. And the other side of it is, can I do this? So he says, like, oh, kiss me. And I'm like, you want
Hmm.
me to kiss you? And yes, that's kind of how it is. And that was such an organic moment for me. And I didn't like, I was reflecting later on, as you do when you talk to your friends, like, oh, how'd that
Yeah.
go? And I'm like, I had this whole moment where I just felt like
Hmm.
a bad, just awesome, like queen of sex because I asked for a kiss.
Yeah.
I instigated it by asking
Hmm.
the question and getting consent, and
Yeah.
I did it in a way, and now we're fucking married. So
Well, and because you hit every key component. Okay, you communicated your needs, or you communicated your wants.
mhm,
You communicated your consent in that you were open to it, and then you're waiting for the reply back.
mhm.
But you did it in such a fucking awesome way that
Yes.
it also
Thank
was
you.
sexy. And that because I'm sure it blew his mind. I already know it blew his mind. Because here's the question. Has anyone ever done that to him? Has anyone ever given that sort of option? Like
Yeah.
has that been made available? But how much of it too is we haven't even touched, and I don't think we need to touch upon it, but like this power dynamic,
Mhm,
especially when it comes to, you know, um in this case specifically, men and women. Again, in this case specific, we're talking in the terms of, some of it too is you are in some ways the consent holder. You're the consent key.
mhm.
um I mean, it definitely takes two to tango, but you are the consent key. And being able to kind of open that door makes things easier in the sense that there's less of a stress that way, because you've already opened that dialogue. You've already kind of put yourself out there, and it just makes the process streamlined. So listeners out there, okay, listeners out there, this is the way to do it. You just heard it. You just heard sexy consent right there. All right. We got it. Okay. We can close the book. We got it. Sign the movie rights away. We're here.
uh, I mean, I'm gonna negotiate those because I'd love to get paid. Like your girl wants bank, she's getting that bag. Um, I will say though that version, like that sort of, what do you want? Do you like it? Stop, like that type of question continues on with whatever sexual activity you're doing. So if it's going down on somebody, or the moment where the condom comes out, uh, whatever you're getting into, that continued, what do you want? And also being open to suggestions when they say something. And then if you're not comfortable doing that, saying you're not comfortable, let's do something else. Like also,
Mhm.
being it's both sides, it's a conversation. Um, but consent, like you had said earlier, can always be taken away at any moment. And that playful conversation can keep consent in it.
Mhm.
And another thing that people can do is check in on their partner. Like, how are you feeling? Do you like it? Because a lot of women in particular, if they're feeling pain during sex, they won't always say something. And so checking in on your partner when they would want to say no, stop. Um,
Mhm.
they may be uncomfortable and they may continue because that's the expectation. So that's something to consider. And I will add that women in particular have, so I think this is something where identifying as a woman, that being raised as a woman, like that's my primary experience in life. Um, and how I interact with sex, like I understand really that I'm very assertive, and the way I do things isn't always going to be what other people do and how they approach sex and sexuality. Um, but a lot of women struggle to say the word yes as well because they feel like they aren't supposed to, because then that's, oh, horny. Like, how dare you want sex? So there is
God
some
forbid.
research out there that women are scared to say the word yes. And what's trained into people is, oh, they're not going to say yes. So you do it the other way and you kind of wait until they say no. So
Mm.
understanding that sort of social dynamic and talking about sex in general, and it's okay for people to be horny and want to have sex, and we shouldn't make women feel bad for saying yes and wanting to have sex. I think that's something to also be considered. So
And you right there are unloading fucking a millennia of uh this inherited struggle, unfortunately, because you're right. I mean, we're going back to, the time of hysteria being cured by vibrators. like, I mean, it.
actually,
Go ahead.
we should talk about that. There is some references out there that that story may not be completely true, might have been sensationalized, but we can come back to it a different day. Maybe a whole episode on sex toys and the history.
We're gonna go back in time and we're gonna get weird. So that's a future episode.
Aren't we
Um,
weird? We're weird now. We're also being
but
weird
no,
now.
no, we're normalizing. We're
We're
normalizing.
normalizing. I like that. Okay.
So I think the takeaway here, because obviously I think it's time for another drink.
It is.
I think the takeaway here um is that consent is something that is needed, it is required, and it's a two-way street. And it is something that can be revoked at any second, any minute, and goddamn, you can do it sexy. Trust us. So, Nikki, I'm ready for a third drink. Are you ready for a third drink? God forbid.
Yeah. Oh man.
Um,
Wow. How long? It's been an hour, and how much? I don't want to think about how much I'm drinking right now.
we are, again, we are two adults who are enjoying some adult beverages while talking about not necessarily adult themes, as we've heard from the numbers earlier.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna jump right in here because I'm drinking the first bourbon I ever had. It was I'm a proud graduate of the Thomas Jefferson University School of Nursing. And a bottle of Jefferson's Reserve was placed uh, in my hands. Um, and I gotta say, I enjoy it. It's smooth. It's got kind of like a high note of vanilla. Again with a fucking spicy finish. Because who doesn't like a spicy finish? Um, I've got they're all up there. This runs anywhere from $60 to $65. And this one I actually really enjoy in my old fashions. It's got a great note and it really blends superbly with orange. So
Hmm.
bottoms up.
I'm curious because it gives where I live. we are known
Hmm.
for the old fashioned. I have not
Don't
put.
don't you dare.
I
Where
no.
where because there's some hot takes about certain states and how they do an old fashioned.
Oh, see, the thing is, I just say I'm from the Midwest. Nobody needs to know the actual state I
Okay.
live in. I mean, people can probably figure it out, but I'm just like, no, I don't live there. Like, uh,
Can I ask you two questions about your old fashions and I'll know right away?
okay,
Okay. Do you put club soda in your old fashioned?
I do not. They do.
The pause?
Because
Concerning.
I there's
Okay.
my approach to an old fashioned and
Hmm.
theirs. I'm not from here, okay?
Right.
But they do.
Okay, they do. Um, I'm gonna give you what I think when I make an old fashioned. Okay. This is honest to God what I do. Okay. It starts simply enough. You gotta pick scotch, bourbon, whiskey, rye, whatever you enjoy, whatever tastes good is gonna taste good in this. Okay. You're gonna need small glass. Okay. One single or two ice cubes, not too much. Okay. I use about a teaspoon of real cane sugar or a sugar cube. Then I take an orange peel and drop it in there and muddle together. I don't put a cherry in. I'm not that type of guy. I put exactly 2 dashes of not just regular bitters. I use orange bitters because I'm a bitter
Mm.
bitch. Muddle that shit together. Okay. Then I drop my ice cube. Then I pour probably about a shot glass full of whatever I enjoy. Stir it around a little bit. And then I take not a maraschino cherry, definitely not a maraschino cherry, because they may or may not give you cancer. Fun fact. I
Wow.
take a regular old, beautiful cherry that you can find at your grocery store and I pop it right in there. And that is my old fashioned. And it's delicious.
That sounds amazing.
Yes. Now I want to hear about these old fashions that you've been having.
So, brandy old fashioned. I don't know if
Oh,
that
okay.
kicks.
No, you fucking knew it. All right. No, it's okay. It's okay
Like,
because we
I
are
don't,
here. We're normalizing because I shouldn't talk shit about how anybody enjoys their drink.
you
However you
know,
enjoy your drink is how you enjoy your drink.
I think that yes, there's something to be said for that. The old fashioned is one of the most interesting, debatable drinks out there because when you order it here, you can order it with, like, most people get a brandy old fashioned sweet and they put like some sort of extra syrup in it. And
Hmm.
I don't know, it's very confusing. But the first time I had it, I was like, okay, can I just change everything about this drink? And I would like some rye in it because I have my old fashions with rye.
Hmm.
And then I just learned how to make my own. But I kept the maraschino cherry in it just to be like, okay, like a nod to the area. But now cancer, so I'm good. Thanks.
It comes from the old because one of the preservatives they use is aspartame and it just linking to that old adage of diet sodas and all that fun. But
Yeah.
I want to say I just read something about France uh conducting like a 100,000 person study and had to do with artificial sweeteners and it's linked to cancers. But again, I'm trying to put research out there. I haven't invested enough into it to comment on that. So that is for you, listener, to find out. And I've completely fucked up your flight. I jumped right on you about your old fashioned. I want to
No,
know what you're drinking. I want to know
no,
what you're
that's
drinking.
fine.
What are you drinking?
I was very curious about the old fashioned. It's
Because I heard about people who enjoy their old fashions with a brandy. Oh, I saw Martin over at the grocer the other day. I'm going to take this moment. I actually promised two friends of mine north of the border, my two Canadian beaver friends. Um, uh, I hope you're listening. I hope you've made it to this point of the podcast. I hope you haven't shut it off.
like
So shout out.
done.
I gotta timestamp this so I know when to tell them and be like, you don't have to listen to anything else, just this one moment. So to my two Canadian beavers, hello. and I hope you're enjoying something good while listening. But Nikki here is about to tell me about her delicious rye bourbon whiskey scotch that she has left.
It's another bourbon from Kentucky. So it's Bardstown Bourbon Company's Discovery Series number 5. And it's a blend of bourbon whiskeys, cask strength, because that's what we're doing. 52%. It's what we do. I added water, and honestly, like, I don't add a lot of water, but I added water because I was like, okay, I'm going to be drinking on camera. Let me just tone it down a bit. I know it can change the flavor profile a bit. It's still delicious. There's a lot of apple in this, and like molasses. It's got a nice smooth finish, but I have to say, one of the reasons I love it is because it's called Bardstown, and I think of the word bard and storytellers. So I also think of like horny bards and D&D and that sort of stereotype. But
We're mixing everything into this. We really
no,
are.
like I like the name of it. I'm like, that's super fun. I drink this because it's $140 a bottle. Has a rating of 94 by the people who know better than I do. And I drink Bardstown when I've gotten an acceptance into, like, when I submit some sort of short fiction to anywhere. If I'm accepted, this is what comes out. If not, I grab Writer's Tears. It's an Irish whiskey when I get a rejection.
I know about Writer's Tears.
Yeah, no, that is one of my favorites. But yeah, this is an expensive one. It's a blend of multiple bourbons, and it's delicious. I don't know what else to say about it. I have all these notes. I'm just gonna drink it.
Now, listener, you are part of a special moment here because Nikki brought out a bottle that she drinks when she is celebrating good news, and she took it out for the first episode of this. So I am raising a glass to her.
Cheers.
I'll bring out the more expensive stuff later on. I was very much a dip my foot in the pool, but now I know I got to do some like belly flops or something.
Well, I went back and forth and decided for the first episode, maybe the last, we don't know.
Damn sure ain't the last. I do not care.
We're just gonna keep hitting record and hanging out. That's what. Yeah. I thought special occasion. We'll do this one. It's great. So, yeah. Oh, God.
Now, as you're enjoying your, so let's see, $140 a bottle, probably about $10 a glass, maybe something around those lines.
Oh, I don't do math. No,
yeah.
That's. I'll go get my husband if you need the answer to that question. He's the math guy.
No. As we're both enjoying our delicious bourbons, we're gonna bring up the third C, and it's the C that some people forget about, maybe intentionally, maybe not intentionally. Contraception. Now, I'm gonna start us out here from the perspective of myself, because that is the best perspective. No, I will tell you that from the component of sex education is something that is widely misunderstood. It is widely misconceived, and it is underutilized, I guess is the best way to put it. And I think the fault is that this country is so fucking backwards on how it approaches it. Because when you start your narrative by saying that abstinence is the only form of contraception, you already lost the fucking battle. People are going to have sex. People are going to have tons of sex. And it is important that they have safe sex. So my adage here is that it is important that whether it be casual, whether it be partner, your most important step is understanding how can we be safe in this interaction. And it's why it's the third cornerstone of our C's, because without it, it can actually kill you. And that is something that is not really talked about. But sexually transmitted infections and sexually transmitted diseases are on the rise in this country. And the question is why? Well, here's the answer: because nobody's teaching you about how to do the fun stuff in a safe and friendly manner. So, for that, I'm going to jump over to Nikki because I want to hear her thoughts about contraception.
So I have to say that um, I was raised in Texas. And when you think Texas and education in general, I'm sure it's great, positive. Yeah, it's good stuff. Anyway, you don't think about Texas and think, oh, sex ed is great.
Can
I
I tell
think
you that there is an image that I think of, and it is burned in my mind, and it is a picture, and I'm gonna assume it's from Texas, where
probably.
it's I want to say it's a health book, and it's a picture of a man and a woman about to engage, and it is Jesus with his hand on the woman and his hand on the man, and he's like, "There's a better way." And is Jesus about to teach him how to fuck better, or is Jesus about to teach him, like, what is Jesus? What's the better way, Jesus? What is the better way? I'm sorry, I had
That's
to
like
interject there when I heard Texas.
a cuckold situation, threesome. Like there's
No,
like
in
so
that scenario, Jesus is in the closet watching.
there's so many things. Like you put a third party in there, and I'm just like, all right, where are we going? Um, I don't know. That could be Texas. It could be Alabama. Who knows? I didn't see that, but I can imagine it, and I'm gonna really think about that tonight. So, in my,
Please don't.
I'm gonna meditate on that for a
Yeah,
while. Can you just put that image up, like somehow, just drop it in? Have
I
that.
gotta
You know
I
what?
gotta find it.
Take our faces out of this completely, and just however long this shit is, it's just Jesus. Like I've got to. Anyway, contraception, sex ed. So part of the reason that I am so passionate about it is I had a teacher in 8th grade who she was the PE teacher. And we got our sex ed from like our English teacher, and it was a tape. Like she just played the tape. And I remember this teacher clearly because like it was also flu season. And so she just, anytime someone sneezed or like made some sort of noise, she would just walk around with Lysol and just kind of Lysol in that student's direction. So just tells you just a little side about that teacher. And so we watched this video it's about birth and like getting
Yeah.
pregnant.
Hmm.
And then it's also abstinence only. But this woman who was one of the, PE coaches, she went to Planned Parenthood. She picked up every fucking thing she could. She brought it to the school, not the school district, and was like, look, we are like the population of students statistically, their like teen pregnancy rates will infect them. We had already had 2 students, this was middle school, who were pregnant. And she was like, we can't play this game. Please let me do this. So she
Hmm.
created, she did like a whole sex ed class for I think it was like 200 of us, like in this sort of giant room. And she went through with everything from Planned Parenthood, covered all types of contraception, um, and just protection from STIs in general. She's like, I learned about dental dam when I was in, I think it was 7th grade maybe. And I know, like, I talked to my husband like a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple, I don't know, month ago, and this kind of gives something away about us and our bad. But he had never heard of dental dam. He was like, what the fuck is that? And I'm like, you've never heard of that? And then a couple of our friends were like, yeah, I've never heard of that. And I was like, I, but I guess it makes sense. It shouldn't,
Hmm.
that because nobody's teaching it. But
No.
what I loved about what my teacher was saying is she was like, look, She would do it with like this deadpan, like whatever voice, like abstinence only is the only way to not get pregnant. But if you're going to do something, here are alternative things you can do. So she taught like oral sex is an
Hmm.
alternative. Um, if you're horny, here are things you can do. Very
Hmm.
controversial, but she
Yeah.
knew, she read the room, she knew what was happening, and she taught ways to protect ourselves. And that was just like, it was an eye-opening moment for me. And it really, like, however many years later, I don't know how old I was back then, but I'm in my 30s now. That sticks with me as someone who, that was revolutionary what she was doing.
Hmm.
So when I think about contraception, I always think about her and how she was willing to come in and just, here are condoms, here's dental dam, but here's other ways to protect yourself. Talked about birth control and the options that were on the market. I believe Depo-Provera, um,
The
was
shot.
the shot. It
Hmm.
was like the brand
Hmm.
name, but now I think there are other brands. I'm not sure, but she, yeah, she took the time to teach us so much, and that was such a meaningful thing for me, and it really did a lot. And it's like, have I made missteps and just maybe sometimes been in the moment and not
Hmm.
listened, like not thought, paused and thought about it before? Like, yeah, I'm totally guilty of that. But now it's not something I would be guilty of because I'm like, okay, I know better. I'm learning these things again in my 30s. So when
Hmm.
it comes to contraception, there's so many options out there. And a lot of us think of the condom is the big
Hmm.
one.
The old
Um,
standby.
yeah, and that's the one where you have to use it every time.
Correct.
And like that's how it works. And I believe 85% effectiveness, that's what Planned Parenthood lists it at. There are different types of condoms, different types of materials.
Hmm.
You need to learn how to use it properly. Also learn how to store your condoms. Don't store your condoms in your car or your wallet.
Hmm. Friction destroys condoms. Also, you can only use certain lubricants when wearing your
Hmm.
condoms. They will eat through your condom.
Yes.
That's why we endorse water-based
Hmm.
lubricants on this show. But please continue.
Can we get an endorsement from a water-based lubricant though? Like, can somebody
We'll
sponsor
reach.
us?
We will.
I
Okay,
have a
this will be
brand.
the
I have
clip.
a
This will be the clip. This will be the clip that we send to them. We need the endorsement right here. Just the logo. Just
yeah,
right. Just
right.
floating on by. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a very specific brand, but I won't name drop them. But
No, do
um,
because if we get them, then we can just use this clip.
I'd have to go get the bottle. I can't. I can't remember the name. I just know the bottle. It's like got some gold shit on it. I
You
don't.
don't have the lube on hand? What is this? What the fuck is
I've
going
got the dental dam and the condoms. I'm
on?
sorry. I put the vibrator in the other room. Like, just it needed to charge, dude. Okay, like, cut me some slack. I'm trying.
I will say, I only know about dental dams because obviously in my avenue and my profession, I had to know every different form of contraception, and I had to keep myself well versed in every form of contraception, which is um you know been beneficial in my track record when it comes to STIs and STDs.
Mhm.
Uh, but I think too, the big S word is shame,
Mhm.
and the association. Yeah, I mean, we all see the stupid commercials, and even the trope in the movies where the young teenage boy is trying to buy condoms for the first time, and they're ringing them up, and they need the price check on the condoms, and he's like, you know what, fuck it, I don't need them, and then he runs away. Like, normalize it. Like, people fuck. Like,
Yeah.
if they didn't, we'd be in serious trouble. There would be, deafening lower birth rates and stuff like that. But I mean, everybody's in the same avenue here. Okay, like, let's just normalize it. And I think too, the harder part is that it's kind of this weird cycle where condoms used to be out and about, and then now they're being put behind plastic casings, because people have been so embarrassed about buying them that they steal them. So when
Yeah.
something is stolen so frequently, it gets put behind a plastic case. So it's this never-ending cycle of shame and awfulness. So the lesson here is, like, it's okay. Like there's
Mhm.
no shame in being safe, and if you take anything home, I hope that's one of them from this.
And yeah, there are so many options on the market in terms of, you know, something that you can use every time, like a diaphragm condom. There are internal condoms, not as effective. Birth
Hmm.
control sponge, spermicide and gel. I don't know why when I learned about that when I was younger, I was just like, that sounds really weird. It like weirded me out.
Hmm.
Um, but they're they can be expensive and they're not as effective as condom when used
Hmm.
properly every time. Like there's cervical caps.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's also, birth control shot, implants, things that people can do. They tend to be a little bit more.
Marina, NuvaRing, the
Mhm,
T, the copper T,
yeah.
which I don't think is on the market anymore.
I don't.
Hopefully,
I think that had enough problems where
yeah,
finally they were like, "Ugh," I think
yeah.
Netflix did a documentary and they were like, all right, we're
Let's
done.
stop this.
Yeah,
I
we
also
should
couldn't
stop.
imagine like just putting myself in there and like the possibility of this like thing like just I would just be like maybe not about it.
No, it's
Mm-mm.
like that was one where I'm like, oof, no,
Yeah.
like
Look,
even mm,
as soon as they said copper, I'm like, okay. First off, I don't know anyone shoving pennies up there, so like, why would you want to put that up there to begin with? Okay,
I
everything else, I get it. Okay, even the sponge still, like, I'm like, is that comfortable? Like, how does that? And again, these are things I'll never know, unfortunately. Like I never know. I feel and talking about birth control and the idea of like there's so much on the the female side of things and like the onus on the woman of making sure that he's wearing a condom or I took my birth control or I placed my dental dam or I'm
mhm,
I got my shot and there's so much weight on you that like we've talked about with everything else, this consent, communication, contraception, it is both of you.
mhm.
So,
It's all about that communication and respect. It's a lot of
hmm,
respect that goes into it as well. Like both partners are here, both need to take responsibility. In a lot of cases, when it comes to contraception, it's more on the woman, um, who the one with the who can have a baby,
yeah,
um, than it is on the person who can't. And
yeah,
there's a lot more that could be said about that. But also, what people don't I feel like it gets lost is the idea that, okay, she's on birth control, we're good, let's do it. And that's like, no, because
mm-mm,
STIs still exist.
absolutely,
And that is ridiculous. And I'll throw out like another statistic. Um, Half of emerging adults aren't concerned about STIs from intercourse, and a majority are unconcerned from oral sex during their last hookup. It's a study I referenced earlier, but the last hookup, 71% engaged in condom use for anal or vaginal intercourse. Aginal. If you're going to do both in one time, I
starting
guess.
starting something new here.
I mean, I think it's a
Yes,
thing. I just gave it a
but
name.
remember, vagina to ass, never ass to vagina. Okay,
Yeah,
we
and
do not want
actually,
any
that's
infections or so.
the argument for bringing leave the house with more than one condom. Like always
Yes,
have several.
fucking a.
Um, just at least three. That's sort of the recommendation. Even if you go to, I think the Trojan website, they say three.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what their reason was for three. What I think they said something about.
Well, one you make a balloon animal, and then the other two,
That's how you press them. You're at the bar, you rip it out.
it's a giraffe, and they're like, "Oh shit, my underwear's already off.
Like
Do you consent? I do. Let's go."
like my panties just dissolved. Okay. Like that's exactly what it is. But yeah, that I think that's what they said, specifically balloon animals.
Mhm.
Um, but people aren't using condoms, but then when it comes to, oral sex, they really are not concerned.
No.
And that study, 0% used any sort
Hmm.
of dental dam
Yeah.
when receiving oral. And I was just like,
I'm gonna ask a very, very personal question.
okay.
When giving or receiving oral in your past, how often has the receiver of oral or the giver of oral been wearing protection? Exactly.
Like never.
And
Like it's
never.
no.
I have and in my and I my blushing bride will probably be fast forwarding through some parts, but in my
Bless her.
wilder days, I knew that a condom was used for intercourse, but when oral was involved, there was no condom there, and when I was giving, there was no dental dam there. There was no, and it's crazy to think about the HPV and how herpes, a lot of things
Mhm.
that can occur from oral sex. Um, so it's wild that we our focus too is purely penetrative, when in reality just the if sex is involved, there has to be some sort of safety before it. And I
Right.
know that it sounds like a buzzkill, and I know the argument out there is it going to feel the same getting a blowjob with a condom on? Is it going to feel the same if someone's going down on me and I have a dental dam? And I will tell you, I will be honest, probably not, unfortunately. And that it's a barrier, first off, but doesn't mean that it still can't be used and it still can't
Mhm.
be done the right way.
Yes. And I will say this brings up, so I said no earlier. Um, in giving, I've done that and someone's been wearing a condom, and
Mm,
it's just like it's a totally different experience for both. However,
mhm,
that was like a safe choice. But when it came to dental dam, it's because
mhm.
the condom was there. Like we're just programmed like condom, condom,
Yeah.
condom. So I
Mhm,
was like, oh, condom. But when it comes to dental dam, my first sexual experience was being the receiver on the receiving end of oral. And I remember thinking like, oh no, don't we need dental dam? Because my super awesome PE teacher, and he was like, what's that? And then I was just kind of like, okay, I guess we're doing this. And I
mhm.
was like, and I go back to that moment a lot and I'm like, oh man, like what could have happened? You know? But honestly, like I'd never, even since then, I haven't gone out to buy dental dam. But I bought some just for this podcast to
I
play
was gonna
with.
ask you where the fuck you found it. Like, to be honest with you,
I
like,
had I ordered it because I didn't want to go to Target because it was the one thing I needed, and I can't go into that damn fucking store and buy one thing. Um, but yeah, no, this is like a whole thing of dental dam. Like this is, it looks. I don't know if anyone knows this Biore pore
Biore
strip stuff.
pads.
No, that's not what I don't, what up the blue, it was a different brand, like the blue oil absorbing
Mhm.
pads. It looks like that.
So it does it in terms of texture. Is it similar to like a balloon? Like,
Yes.
okay, I
Yes.
just yeah, I it's been a while since I've had to interact with it, and that was purely. Did you just smell it?
I did. It comes it comes in different flavors as well. This is this one does not, I got the flavorless
I
one because
love
I'm
how you instinctively just were like right to the face, and I was like, that's what you do. That's right. Good job. Okay.
oh man, if you're like breathing in and going down on somebody, I just like, oh my gosh, I almost smothered myself. Like
It's just like maybe you have to tap your partner on the shoulder like every couple seconds, be like, hey, you oh god. Um I
also, this is just like, are you putting this in your purse? Not you.
smart dam. I love how it's called smart dam. So hold on. So you go down to your local Target, right? And first off, you have to tell yourself, I'm just getting dental dam. All right. I'm gonna walk past all the new seasonal outfits. I'm gonna walk past the
No, it's I'm
grocer.
walking past the display of vibrators because now
Your
Target
Target
sells
has vibrators?
vibrators and cock rings. I'm not shitting you. Like they have
What?
vibrators and cock rings. Yes, but they're all locked up. Probably because
Oh,
people steal them.
I've got the Puritan Target. I've got the Target that, above where like that section should be. It just says shame.
It's got what is it? A little cup of wine and the Eucharist. Like
Yeah.
there you go.
That's exactly.
That's the way to get it. Anyway, sorry. Like, yeah, I can't go
Yeah.
to Target because I'm really tempted to ask someone to unlock all of those from the shelf. Like everyone, they have like 5 or 6 products and buy them and
Mhm.
just do it without shame. Like I'm so tempted to do it. And then I'd like come home with like 5 or 6 vibrators and husband's gonna be like, why? And he won't care, but he'll just be like, why? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I had a point to prove. You can't go into
Yeah.
Target for one thing. Anyway, sorry. Dental dam.
Dental dam. So okay, so you're and for those at home, okay, dental dam is acting as a barrier. That's pretty much what dental dams, condoms, sponges, cervical caps, they're barriers. Okay, and the point of this barrier is that you're not basically mixing your own saliva with any sort of discharge from the vagina. Um, and it is just lessening your risk of getting any sort of active infection that they have or or you're not giving any active infection. That's the point. It's very similar to a condom, but it's really solely for the like I'm not yes, I'm pretty positive you're not supposed to be like using it to wrap around your penis and like shove it in. Like, no, it's basically like I think of it as you are the bubble boy and someone is trying to give you a kiss through the bubble. All right. That's it. You're not sticking your dick in the bubble. All right. You're just trying to oh boy. This is
I
where
had
we
to
have
make
led.
it weird.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Just to comment here, Nikki has a beautiful candle that she wants to show how I'm worried. So the audio portion of this, for those if this does end as the podcast, I think we're trying to keep this pure video because I think the demonstrations are amazing. But if this does end up in an audio only portion, I will walk you through what Nikki is doing at this moment.
Okay. Can I actually show this for like on YouTube? Are they going to blur out a vulva candle? And honestly, I thought you said Nikki has a gorgeous or beautiful or wonderful. I don't know what you were going to say, but I didn't expect the word candle. And I was like, because it's a vulva. And I was like, oh God, sir, like you can't just say that shit out loud. Sorry.
There
Okay.
is no dimension in which I was not saying candle after those words.
I know. But it's a
Yeah.
vulva and vagina candle. I mean, feel free to
Hmm.
point out
Yeah.
anatomy and
All right.
misconceptions.
Do you want to point out? I think the biggest thing here is you want to show where the clitoral hood is, because I think that is something that definitely needs to be discovered by
So many
90%
people.
of men. And here's a side note: when having penetrative sex, the amount of women who cannot orgasm simply from penetration is astounding. All right, there has to be some other stimulation in most cases. And that doesn't mean that the clitoris is the only fun part of everything. Okay. There's a lot of other erogenous zones that can be activated and used
Mhm.
to make sure that everybody has a great time. So as we see here is a beautiful representation. So the dental dam itself. Okay. Can we have our blue pad,
Blue or balloon. Yeah, a blue
our
balloon.
balloon? Can we have
It's
our beautiful balloon?
unscented.
It's unscented.
I want
I
to
don't
lick it, but I don't know if I should. Like, that's what you're supposed to do.
listen. If you want to show people what you're supposed to do, I
You're gonna have to
completely.
blur all of that out.
Have you seen YouTube? Have you seen YouTube?
I see the people who are trying to make money on their videos get demonetized. Are we
Yes,
trying to make money?
we're just here for the education point.
We're here.
Is
we're
there
here to drink.
is there money in education? No.
No.
So we are simply here so that somebody down the road is like, you went to Target, you got the dental dams, we're going to show you how to use them. Okay. So basically, I'm not, you know what? I didn't even ask for your consent about whether or not you were comfortable doing this. So
I didn't
we're
either,
gonna
and I just
we're
asked it
we're gonna
out.
we're gonna step back from this. Okay. You got to put it back up.
Okay.
Okay. And we're going to talk about the fact that Nikki is going to do whatever she feels comfortable in doing. And she can simply just put the dam over top and you can just use your imagination of what you're supposed to be doing. Okay. Is that fair?
That's totally fair.
I need to hear a
I'm-
yes. I need to hear
Yes.
a yes. There we go.
Yes. I consent to that.
Beautiful. Okay. So dental dam on top.
So the thing with dental dam is there like thighs and stuff there? You know, there it goes. So imagine those are like, you know, other parts of the body that are there.
Mm-hmm.
The person with
Now,
the vagina,
do you think you tuck it, like you tuck it along the side,
you
like
have to
how?
hold it the entire time. So
So
the giver would not be holding. I mean, somebody has to hold it in place.
so I'm guessing. So I'm assuming here. Let me assume here. Okay. So legs are on my shoulders, I'm assuming, because that is the only way that the person would be able to reach their hands around. So legs would have to be on my shoulders, and then the person would have to the woman would have to put their arms around their own thighs and press the dam against, and then I would be going to town.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, so, and I'm even thinking about that. Like, I mean, there are so many positions for that, but that would actually be, personally, I have like a very long torso and short arms, so it would be really hard for me to just hold on to that.
That's what I'm trying to figure out here,
Yeah.
because there's so many dimensions. I feel like it would be the easiest if the giver was the one
yeah.
holding the dental dam. All right, we figured this out. We got
Yeah, we
there.
figured it out. Yeah.
We
Like,
figured it
look,
out.
supposed to be professionals. We talked this through. But yeah, someone has to hold it in place. I will say that this, I'm not saying I bought it and I'm going to do nothing with it. Like, I tried to figure out how it felt, because it's like, what is the difference? And you need the person who has the receiver, like some sort of lubricant, because this, I mean,
Even I don't have one, and even I was like, that's not.
yeah, because like a condom is lubricated
Yes.
usually and
Mhm.
whatnot, but this, like, against your skin, especially if you're not like soaked, yeah, that's just really uncomfortable.
I did really well not giving a reaction to that one. So we're gonna as we're composing ourselves here, on the condom side of things, a little tip too, is if consent is received and we're moving things along, it is 1,000 times easier to put a condom onto an erect penis. Okay. So making sure you're at that point first. Secondly, there is nothing more confidence shaking than fumbling. So my advice to you, okay, here's my advice, is it never hurts that in the act of foreplay, because I think that is the most, that's the buildup, okay? Because I think good sex starts with foreplay, or it should be all sex starts with foreplay. But I think in the act of that is when, if you're occupied with your mouth in certain areas, you can be starting a small rip into your condom, okay, to prep it. And hell, even if you want to just get the top off, okay, because most arousal can come from giving pleasure to your partner. We are in tune with that way. It is one of the things where some people get aroused simply from viewing pleasure in their partner. Some people get aroused from going down on their partner. Like that is for some people that is enough for them. Um, so that is just a boost there to help you out, because I know there's nothing more core shaking than fumbling with a condom and then realizing that you're putting such mental strain on yourself that maybe you're not now ready to put a condom on. And that old tricky situation. So that's important there. But also too, the foreplay as well um, gets the partner into a situation where they are ready to receive what what you're putting that condom on. So that's my 2 cents, 5 cents. That's my dollar right there.
Inflation. So
Inflation. We got to
yeah,
raise that. It's not 2 cents anymore.
no,
It's a
it's not
dollar.
2 cents anymore. It's inflation. Yeah.
It's a dollar.
And I will say something that I've learned is just I I don't have a penis. I don't. But I've made myself very familiar with a condom because sometimes you can read like if your partner is a bit skittish and there is a bit of sexiness in taking charge in another way. So say you have the condom, which is fine, and you
Hmm.
know how to use it. You know how to put it on them. Like that is a good thing to know.
Correct.
Um completely. So
Hmm.
if you normally wouldn't have one of these because you don't have a penis, I would consider going and getting them. And I mean, get familiar with ways to put them on.
Hmm.
Um, I have a whole thing with produce.
It's
Like,
a banana. Just say it's a banana. It's a
no,
banana.
just,
That's
but
why
like,
you
there's
buy a
also,
banana.
no, I have a story about a zucchini and produce, but we're not going to, it didn't happen to me. I just, I mean, it kind of did, but not really. But finding a way to just get comfortable with a condom so you understand like what's going on, like
Hmm.
which side is up and how it,
Yeah.
all of that.
And
Um,
we're really focusing on the condom because it's just statistics speaking, that is the form of contraception that is most used.
mhm.
And especially with a condom, you have to remember the always pinch the tip. Okay, you
Yes.
have to have a reservoir because semen can leak out of a condom, and unless there's an actual spermicide inside of the condom, which does not come with all condoms, if it leaks out and it is able to enter into the vagina, guess what? You might have a surprise in about 9 months or so.
An
So
expensive
it's a
surprise.
very expensive surprise. We're not even that's again another that's down the road. Um, so so I will say that contraception from our standpoint, and I hope I can speak for both of us, it is definitely a joint venture. It
Mhm.
is something that also comes with consent and it comes with communication. It's something that you are going to need going forward, and I know there are partners out there that the one of the great things that I did with every long-term relationship that I really got into was going to a clinic. Don't go to the ED. Okay. Do not go to the emergency department because the emergency department is not a free clinic. Okay. They will charge you out the ass for testing. You go to your Planned Parenthood if hopefully, God willing, they stay strong and are still part of our lives. You go to your clinic, you get tested for everything under the sun. Okay. They will work with you with pricing. And once you establish that, and once you keep it to a one partner system, and as long as we are talking in the avenue of, if we're talking about pregnancy prevention, yes, keep using your contraception and, in that manner. Or, but as a term of safe sex, if you are cleared for the tests and, maybe if you're going down the pregnancy route or not, or if your partner is on birth control, which like that's another thing to get into about in terms of, how you should be taking your pills and what is a sugar pill and stuff like that. And that's education that again you need to garner yourself. As long as you're going down that avenue, that is a safe way to do it because you've been tested, you know the results. And as long as you're keeping to a one partner dynamic, knock on wood, it's important to stay that way because I will say this, and these are just some things that I only put down as notes because it's kind of been a harbinger for me. Of course, I have like 9 pages of stuff. Um, Something I kind of wanted to get into in terms of contraception. If I could find the fucking page, some here we go. anyone over the age of 18 should be seeing a general practitioner every year, every year, every year. If you are on the other side of things, you should be seeing a gynecologist every year. Okay. And I know there's fear there with some people, especially because if you come from a situation or a home where, stuff wasn't discussed with you. I know people who are 26, 27 who have never been to a gynecologist. And that's scary because it's unfortunate, and I think part of it is due to that big S word, shame, which we should not even be taught. And it could be a limitation of education. It could be a couple other things. It could be fear of payment. Unfortunately, practitioners and gynecologists are expensive, and it comes with health insurance, and it comes with all this other stuff. But there are clinics that are willing to work with you, and God bless those places.
Yep.
And I think, from something that I really also need to. I have two more things. I promise, just two things. One thing is that herpes and HPV, and this has been a common thing. I've talked with my friends who work in EDs. Herpes and HPV lay dormant. Okay, they are not necessarily from your current partner. So, if you are diagnosed with one, don't turn around and automatically assume that your partner is the one who gave it to you. Unfortunately, okay, that's a lesson here. And with that, people kind of talk about when it comes to getting something like gonorrhea or chlamydia. If you are actively on antibiotics, you are not actively having sex. Okay, you can still transmit while you're on antibiotics. You're supposed to clear for 7 days. If you're clear of 7 days and you're finished your treatment of antibiotics, then absolutely go have fun. But until that time, just stop, just refrain. And finally, and most importantly, there is a difference between the vagina and the urethra. Okay, there is a difference. If I can give you any advice at all, it is to look up a picture
Yes.
of the downstairs. Okay, just look it up.
I
There's
lost my
so much
vulva.
there's so much wonderful information that you can gather from it. Just it's there. Fucking bring the textbook to the bed, okay?
Yeah.
Bring it to the bed. Okay? Gather notes, go back to work. Gather notes,
Fun
go back to work.
fun party activity. Have
Mhm.
all of your friends draw a vulva and label everything. And everyone who gets something wrong has to take a shot.
Pin
Or gets
pin
it right.
pin the t- pin the clitoris on the vulva.
Oh, we just created a whole new game.
Yes, we did. The sexy
Oh.
party game coming from Parker Brothers.
I'm holding it upside down.
I'm like staring at it. I'm like, yeah. Oh, there. Okay.
Yeah, no, this
Yeah.
is it.
Well, you had it if you were coming from behind.
That's true. Like
And
sometimes
yeah, prone
this
position, and you're just
position,
yeah.
I
I
meant to
know.
do that. Like,
Yeah, that was totally. Um, we're at this point of rambling. We are at this
yeah, no,
point of
we're
fun.
at
But
shenanigans.
I did want to kind of close out, as I finished all my whiskey. Damn it. That we've covered our 3 C's. Okay, and this will be the first of many in this long series of educating you on everything and laughing through it, because this is a fun and funny thing to talk about. But I want to close on something that Nikki and I consented and communicated prior. I want you to tell me. I can go first if you want to. I want you to tell me a story or an encounter that it can be funny, it can be heartfelt, it can be embarrassing, that you want to relay to our listeners to close out our first episode. So take it away.
I'm gonna have you go first, if
I will
that's
go
okay.
first. I will go
Yeah.
first. Okay. Again, my blushing bride is probably listening to this, and it's okay because we were people before we were together, and that is important to note. So listeners out there, again, I talked about how I was a late bloomer, and I obviously did not start uh, getting involved in the funner stuff until I was 17. And the first serious girlfriend I had, um, I remember I basically did the role of, where you start with hand stuff, and then kind of progressed. And I remember um, I put there was consent, because luckily I was too nervous and shy. So kind of I was guided with a lot of stuff. And the girl I was with at the time took my hand, and put it down her pants, and I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
Mhm.
Now I was like, in my mind, okay, what do you do now? And it's actually a question. It's a shocking question because we're talking mid 2000s. So the internet was not what the internet is today, and there was just a lot of unfortunate locker room talk, and you're trying to figure out, okay, I'm here, what now?
Mhm.
So my hand, unfortunately, I was searching around for a couple things, and my hand went too far back, and without thinking I shoved my entire middle finger right up her ass, and
Oh, no.
she screeched, and I pulled back, and that was the end of the interaction for the evening. I apologized profusely, obviously, because at first I didn't know what I did. So I was like, is that what they do every time that finger goes in there? Like, they have that reaction. And it wasn't until afterwards she explained where I put that. So it's something like that where I will say that yes, there was consent there. I was guided to where I was supposed to go, but I also needed communication about what to do.
Yeah.
So that's my embarrassing story, listener. I have a lot more, but I think that's probably the tamer one that I feel comfortable with sharing with you listeners. So go ahead, take it away, Nikki.
So I mentioned when we were chatting, um, uh, why I hate Coldplay.
Good start.
Good start, yeah. So, and this person, oh man, if for some reason you come across this, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry for. I'm just sorry for everything else. Just he'll know. He'll know. um. So I guess it was summer. It was like a summer high school thing. And for whatever reason, I hung out with a lot of people who went to Catholic school. They were in my neighborhood. I did not go to Catholic school because I was like, we can't afford that going to public school. But a lot of my friends went to a Catholic school. And over the summer, like we were super close. That's all we did, is hung out every day. And like his best friend, like his family owned a, I guess it was a rental house that was under construction. And
Hmm.
so I need to give him like an alias or something. Um him and our two of our friends, like we would go in separate rooms. We would sneak over there and aggressively make out in our
Hmm.
corners
Yeah,
and would
we grew
always
up at
put on.
we grew up at the same time because I know I am like yep, I'm
Yeah,
there. Okay.
you went to your separate corners, like, "This is the only privacy we have, you go in that room, we'll go in this
Hmm.
room." And then in the hallway, they put on a Coldplay CD, like, there was a stereo and it was just Coldplay, Yellow, like, that
Hmm.
whatever album that's on repeat. And I remember I lost my virginity to Coldplay's Yellow. And that whole experience leading up to it was very, because when we talked about contraception and like being afraid of
Hmm.
like the confidence that comes with like opening a condom and putting it on, I remember he he went into a closet to put on the condom and then made sure all the lights were off and the blinds were closed because he was ashamed of his body. And that, I mean, to this day, like that kind of breaks my heart. I was like,
Yeah.
you're ashamed to do that in front of me? Like, and that's a real thing that continues to happen with couples, even to this day. They're not, people are not comfortable with their bodies and expressing their sexuality. So I was exposed to that at a really young age. And I have to say, like, while listening to Coldplay and having sex for the first time, I was just like laying there and I was very confused. I was like, is this it? Um, this is it? And the song ended right when he finished. And I I was like, am I supposed to like shout and scream like I'm enjoying this? So I just made some noises like, oh yeah. Yes. And he was very proud of himself and I like gave praise and everything and I broke up with him a week later. And they had nothing to do with each other, but I always feel this guilt of like, oh my god, does he think that that's the reason I broke up with him? Like there were other reasons I broke up with him, mainly because I only intended on it being a summer fling and I was going back to school and that was weird and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I didn't want the commitment and there's a lot of stuff going on. But I think back to that a lot because I see so many things in that encounter that there's some things that he said, like a couple of choice lines that I'm not going to share because they kind of border on shaming
Yeah.
him. But
Mm-hmm.
he tried dirty talk and I'm like, is this what happens? And so I just didn't know and I didn't understand. And now I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate dirty talk. And I also appreciate like, if you're nervous about putting on a condom, like maybe try to make it an activity with your partner
Yeah.
because that's like, and it can be a sweet thing. It can be an
Mm-hmm.
affirming thing. Um, and I think that still like breaks my heart to this day, but it really is Coldplay and him like thrusting and his whole rhythm was to the song Yellow. And I just can't with that fucking song like ever again. Ever again. It was like the whole length of the song. And I will say that just it's however long you last, it's okay. Don't ever think that don't shame yourself for lasting for a certain amount of time or
Mm-hmm.
not. Like it, that's a whole other conversation. It kind of comes down to the pleasure dynamic. You're in it for the
Mm-hmm.
orgasm, like all of that. There's so much more to talk about. But yeah, that's why I can't fucking listen to Coldplay.
Because it was all yellow.
It's all yellow. And it was so weird. I didn't enjoy it at all, actually. I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I have no idea what's going on right now. But I consented. We were all fine. I was
Yeah.
just like, what did I sign up for by the end of it?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's why I can't listen.
So we're gonna
Oh, I've
kindred
got that
spirits.
song stuck in my head. I
Uh,
swear to God, it's gonna be stuck in
uh,
my head all week.
oh man. Hopefully that's the only thing stuck. So we are gonna close out here. First, we want to thank you, listener, for
Thank
sticking
you.
around with us. I know this has been a long one, but we appreciate it, and we hope you learned something. And I guarantee we will be back with episode 2. So let's close here. I was RJ.
I was Nikki, still am.
Still am. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next time. We are here and proud to represent GateCrashers. Thank you.
It's the GateCrashers.